looked to the energy mix in Egypt, to the power sector, we could see that by 2020, currently the power sector in 2014, we are relying primarily on natural gas, which is covered around 70% of our total needs, around 21% coming from heavy fuel. Actual natural gas is declining a little bit. It's reaching between 66% to 60 to 70%, depending on some days. And 9%, which is coming from hydro and with renewable energy. 1% or less than 1% coming from renewable energy. 8% coming from hydro, all hydro resources, including the high dam, Aswan dam, all other projects on the Nile, and 91% thermal sources. Primarily natural gas, 2/3 and 1/3 coming, or 75%, and 1/4 coming from heavy fuel. Now, we need to diversify our fuel dependency. Actually, this is the least cost scenario. Actually, the strategy is exploring different scenarios. However, the base scenario normally is the least cost scenario, how we could achieve our demand with the least cost. This shows that we need to start to have a wind energy contribution by 2020 up to 17%. And we need to have hydro by that time will drop down to around 6%. And still natural gas and fuel oil will represent 74%. By 2035, we need to reach a diversification based on the least cost scenario, which shows that wind will become 16%, PV solar 13.5%, CSP by that time, maybe prices will go down and going to represent 8.5%, 9.5%. Nuclear is expected to contribute by that time at 13%, and coal will be at 16.3%, and the remaining will be for natural gas. This is one of the targets of the system, is to diversify. It's a dependency which shows that high dependency on natural gas led to some kind of challenge which we are facing nowadays. So, if we continue with the least cost scenario, there is 2-3 scenarios to be explored for renewable energy based on this scenario. The free scenario, which is the least cost scenario. It shows that in case we adopt the least cost scenario, our installed capacity will go up from 81 gigawatt to 130 gigawatt, because 1 gigawatt of renewables, either solar or wind, don't generate same amount of energy, like it's not dispatchable, like what could be generated from third. This means that a non-hydro renewable energy which need to be added is 62 gigawatt by the year 2035. So it's a very challenging. Other scenarios could be considered, could be an aggressive scenario for renewable energy, which is not the least cost scenario, which means that we might go up to 140 gigawatt, out of them 85 gigawatt coming from renewable sources. So this is I couldn't say challenge, it's an investment opportunity. So this is what we need, so we should work for this. Now, the question, is that could be feasible? Why we need to act now, not before, not tomorrow? Actually, as we could see, impact of fuel prices on cost of electricity produced based on the current pool nowadays, we will find that we have a part of our pools which rely on natural gas at price $3 per million BTU. This means that we have a cost per kilowatt around 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour. Out of them, 3 cents are for fuel cost. If we go down like $9 per million BTU, which is a current cost of heavy fuel, which is around $8.7 per million BTU, local cost I mean, it means that our cost per kilowatt hour will go up. It's not go, actually it's currently happening now. Part of our, the 26% or 24%, which is being generated from heavy fuel, it costs us 9.1 cent per kilowatt hour. Out of them, 7.2 is for fuel cost. If we rely, as is going to happen, on imported gas, LNG sources, which might, the price range between 12 and 15, actually the recent shipments will range between 12, 13, maybe a little bit higher, lower, but we mean that around 15, it means that the cost per kilowatt hour will be around $14. Out of them is 12.4 cent is for the fuel cost, which means that as we use renewable energy, if we generated a part of our pool 12 cent, or even at between 7 up to 12, it will be financially feasible. Currently, we around have 40% of our generation will rely on heavy fuel as well as imported natural gas, which means that now we have a financial chance to use or to rely on renewable energy. So almost 1/3 of our electricity generated in Egypt currently using fuel at a cost higher than $9 per million BTU, which is heavy fuel and imported natural gas. Between 10 to 15% will rely on natural gas, imported natural gas, starting from next March, which is a total amount of around 15 terawatt, which is a market segment. An equivalent cost, as I mentioned, between 9 cents up to 10 cents per kilowatt hour for a fuel cost for $12 per million BTU. And considering renewable resources, either wind or solar, we will find that now we are within this price order. Yes, it might be a little higher for some sources in some cases. However, as the market expands, as economy of scale is being built, now prices will give a relative advantage. So this answers the question, why not before? Before we have $1.8 per million BTU for natural gas from local resources. We have around less than $1 per million BTU for heavy fuel, local heavy fuel. Now, picture has been changed. So before it wasn't able to compete. Now it could compete. So the program basically, it's not just a tariff program. It's a renewable energy program. So the program includes a legal framework, which includes two important documents, which is the presidential decree for the feed-in tariff, which already has been announced, and new law for renewable energy for supporting production in renewable energy, which is about to be announced. A regulatory framework which should detail all kinds of technical and regulatory aspects regarding the program, how to apply to the program, how to install, how to connect to the grid, all kinds of regulatory details. Tariff framework, which is set specifically for renewable energy. Contractual framework, what's the PPA, what's the use of right agreement for land. So a contractual and supplementary framework, which is covered other areas. So the program is basically a 5-component program, which for the legal framework include public land allocation, which already the new law has requested the government to set regulation to enable public land based on use of right, not selling. Actually, because the new constitution has requested a law for use of natural resources. So this law should come because renewable energy is a natural resource. So the law has an article about land allocation. The law has set the mechanism for building renewable energy plans or projects in Egypt. Actually, there are 4 mechanisms within the model. The first mechanism is what Naria is building, which is a governmental kind of scheme where Naria could be the investors. They have an agreement with international development counterpart. They own the project, but they tender for an EPC contract for their project, but they operate it and maintain it themselves. And by the law is requested to sell to the transmission company at a regulated price defined by the regulator. So this